Hey, Chad.
Hey, where's Mrs. Clifford at?
Who?
Steve,
I don't know.
can you call and, oh, here he is. Okay, does he have an iPhone there?
There he is.
Yes, sir. Okay. Is he not gonna show himself?
He's online, but he's sideways.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll start. Dr. Simon can't do, so I have to make it run something. I need to help build the conversation, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Hey, Steve. Got you on mute.
Oh, okay. Is that all right?
That did it.
All right, hello everyone, and thank you for joining the Black Faculty and Staff Association and our interview with Mr. Steve Skipper. The title of our event today is The Invisible Artist. And we want to give everyone a few more moments to come in. We did have one or two people who stated they would be a moment late. We're going to ask everyone to please leave your Zoom sessions muted until you're asked to come forward. I'll pause for a few more moments. And we do see our esteemed guest, Mr. Skipper, is here with us. If you would give us a wave. Thank you.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you. So we'll wait a few more moments. And as you were able to see, we did have the reel of some of your work. Okay. So if you would give us another 30 seconds and we'll begin the discussion.
Thank you.
All right, okay, and we're back. thank everyone for signing in. We do have individuals who are logged into our Zoom. We have one of our previous past presidents, Dr. Pamela Foster, who is on with us, and she just gave us a wave. We also have Mr. Ken Gaddy, director of the Paul Bryant Museum. He just gave us a wave as well. Again, my name is Chad Jackson. I am currently the president of the Black Faculty and Staff Association here at the University of Alabama. I know you all were looking forward to seeing Dr. Cassandra Simon, who was supposed to do the interview today. As we all know, and she did give me permission to share, she is currently recovering from COVID, and she was having a good morning. She asked that we go ahead and I conduct the interview in her stead. So we'll listen to Dr. Simon, who is the vice president of BFSA. Okay. So if you would, I kind of do things a little different. I always allow people to introduce themselves so that we can know exactly what it is that you want us to know about yourself. And I will yield the floor to you, Mr. Skipper. If you would, let us know who you are, where you're from, and how did you get into the arts?
Well, my name is Steve Skipper, and I own a company called Anointed Homes Art. And we've been doing sports art for right at 35 years. Started out at the University of Alabama and had some great times there, had some challenging times, but at the same time, everything came out very, very well.
Okay, so let's elaborate a little bit. When you speak of challenging times, how do you contextualize that? What all fits into challenging times for you?
Well, I think that a lot of people there wasn't ready for an African-American sports artist. I think that sports art was something that was already ongoing at the University of Alabama and in Southeast, and but it wasn't any African-American artists doing it. And what I wanted to do was at the level of the top sports artist, and it wasn't received well by some people. But I think that through a lot of persistence and a lot of other people that were willing to, give me a chance, I think that we did what some people call a pretty good job.
One of those persons happened to be Mr. Ken Gaddy.
Oh yeah. Ken Gaddy is one of the classiest people that I've ever met. I think that he took a stand for me in a way that I'll never forget. My kids know who Ken Gaddy is, and they always will. He's a person that's very dear, and a person that professionally is one of the greatest assets I ever had.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome compliment. Believe it or not, Ken and I are close as well. His wife was one of my teachers in high school. So it's a small world. I would never would have thought that we would have been colleagues here at the University of Alabama. So, Mr. Ken, I'm going to ask you, if you would, to come forward for a second. So, Mr. Skipper states that you were one of the individuals who made it possible to have his artwork displayed at the Paul Bryant Museum. What obstacles did you face, and what did it look like to feature an African-American artist?
Well, I appreciate all those accolades, but I don't really know what we're talking about. I just did what was right for us, for Steve, for the museum. Some of those obstacles are the license program, so we had to make sure that we have hoops to have everything done according to the university policies and procedures. So to me, really, that's the hard part, was all the, I guess, red tape, if you will. But Steve being African American, that's not part of the equation. When y'all look at Steve, is he right-handed or left-handed? You can't tell, right? So that has nothing to do with his art. So the color of his skin, all that stuff has nothing to do with the artwork. So the talent, as I was telling Cassie yesterday, you got to have the talent, you got to have the opportunity, and then it's what you do with that opportunity. So Steve has all three of those. So he had the talent, and when he got the opportunity, he made the most of it.
Right. And currently, how many paintings and works of Mr. Skipper are in the Paul Bryant Museum?
Let's see, we got several original, several prints. I'm looking up on my wall right here. There's two throwing the second and 26th touchdown pass hanging in my office right here. We have several of his featured this month in the exhibit hall. There's Kenny Staber one, for example, that the original's here. It's permanently on display. Steve, I think you've done what now, 3 Staber works through the years.
Yeah, we did 2. He commissioned 2 of them before he passed away. His University of Alabama commemorative and his Oakland Raiders commemorative.
Yeah, so and so we also worked with the Alabama Sports once, but he's got lots of other works. I think he may have one over his shoulder there. And I like Steve. They showed it in the slides today, but the rodeo one is one of the ones I like the best. So he's worked in a lot of different sports. Done some NASCAR work, the civil rights works that are outstanding to y'all saw recently. And I don't know if we can announce them yet, but we're working on another idea. We're still in the ideal phase for something to be out perhaps this fall.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. Now, when I went to the museum, I had a learning curve here. So for those who don't know, what is the difference between a printed work of art and something that is done directly?
Well, an original painting is one of a kind. That's what you're going to do by hand. I think that when we first started out in the business, there was only one form of reproduction, and that was lithography, lithographs, which were, prints that you could do. You probably could do 1,000 in probably 45 minutes. But now there's another style of printing called giclée reproduction, which is a French style of reproduction, and it's a very, very detailed form of reproduction. It's the colors are a whole lot brighter and the details are a whole lot tighter and everything like that. But to do one giclée, it's going to take you 45 minutes to do one. So it's a lot more detailed work in the process. And but we do both lithographs and giclée.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. Here's another question. So we submitted several opportunities to title today's event. Okay. And the one that you chose was the Invisible Artist. What was it that spoke to you? What was it about that title that was prominent that made you want to be want to have that title to represent our discussion today?
Well, I think that over the years, we've had a lot of success, but over the years, there's a tremendous amount of Alabama fans who don't know I even exist. A lot of times we get new collectors that didn't even know, my artwork existed. And so over the years, a lot of people have gotten opportunities that we didn't get. And so opportunity like this right here is tremendous for me, because I thought that, at one time I thought that there were a lot of things that we accomplished that were never going to be known by people, And like I said, a lot of my new collectors, they come up and say that, you've been doing this work for 30 something years. We never knew you existed. And we've collected artwork from other artists that we knew about, but we didn't know you existed. So that's why I thought the title, Invisible Artist was very apropos, because, we accomplished a tremendous amount of stuff that was never known.
Thank you so much for that answer. That's kind of intriguing, because like you said, a lot of Alabama fans, so let's add to the group, a lot of Alabama fans, a lot of individuals in the Black community, they just didn't know that you actually exist. And if I can be candid, they pretty much had no idea that you were still alive and that you're tangible, that someone that we can actually speak to. So what are your feelings about that? That you've kind of been so a hidden secret or a hidden jewel?
Well, I think a lot of things are coming open for me now. I think with the movie that we just did and a lot of exposure from the movie and everything, I think that before all of that happened, I had gotten so used to, you know, the brunt of everything that we went through. And a lot of stuff that I honestly thought that, people would find out about me even after I passed away or something like that. And I think that right now, it's a great blessing to be known and to be appreciated while you're still living. And I think a lot of times, especially African American artists, we don't really get that. A lot of times you find out about African American artists long after they passed away. And I think it was something I remember watching an interview with Jacob Lawrence, the great Black artist. I remember him right before he passed away doing an interview, and he started crying at the thought of there's a tremendous amount of people that don't know anything about his work. And I think that even when it comes to the African American community, here in the South, there's not a lot of interest, in fine art, the way it really is. I mean, artwork being something that is great to collect, great to invest in, the appreciative value of artwork, following the rise of the name and the establishment of the name of an artist. I think that's something that's not really relevant in the African American community as much as it should be. I think that you have to go outside of the state of Alabama and pretty much outside of the country to be appreciated. There's some documentaries on right now because they're saying that 90-something% of all of the artists that are represented in museums and galleries around the United States are white and other races other than African American. There's only probably 3 or 4% of the artists that are represented in galleries and museums that are African American. And so I think it's something that needs to be done. And I think that it's a travesty of, great art and great artists are not known. I think that's one of the biggest things that artists want to do is to get their work known.
Yeah. So take us back to the moment that you realized that being an artist was your calling. Because after I read several articles and I watched several interviews, you frame it as this is your calling. You were born to do this. And I think you stated another way, this is your purpose. So could you take us to that moment that let you know that I'm doing what I am supposed to be doing?
I think I have to go back to the incredible nature of a fourth grade teacher. I think that fourth grade is a very, very pivotal time in the life of a kid, and it was with me. I had an uncle that wanted to do artwork, and back in his day in the 50s and the 40s and stuff like that, it was something that for an African American to say he wanted to be an artist, that was something that was tremendously fought against, and he suffered a lot of resistance in that area. And my brother was also good at art. And so I just wanted to really be like my uncle and my brother. And my mom didn't want me to be an artist because she knew the stuff that my uncle went through in the deep South about an African-American man talking about he wanted to be a fine artist. And so she kind of, pushed against it a little bit, but there was something on the inside of me that really wanted it. And my fourth grade teacher noticed one day that I was drawing on the back of my notebook when I should have been paying attention. And she came up and she saw what I was drawing and she looked at it and I thought I was in real trouble. She grabbed the notebook and she took it to the office and I knew I was in trouble. Then she came back and she got me and took me to the office. And there she told the principal, this young man has something special. He has an artistic talent that's very special. I think he's going to be very good one day. And then, my blood pressure went down and I started realizing I wasn't in trouble. And she went home that evening with me and told my mom that there was something special about me. And then my mom reverted back to what my uncle had been through. And she said that I don't want my son doing this. But make a long story short, when I was 16 years old, I became a Christian. I found out where the talent came from. It came from the Lord. And I really wanted to please God by using the talent. And I became a Christian, but before that, from age 13 to 16, I was in a very notorious gang called the Crips. And with that gang activity, I buried the talent under all that gang activity. When I became a Christian, I dug it up. And that's when I knew that that's what God wanted me to do, because my plan was to be a football player. I was doing everything I could to train, to plan, and everything else to be a football player. But student counselor told me that I had 3 scholarship offers. I had 2 in football and I had 1 in fine art at Florida State University. And the Lord dealt with me that he didn't need me to go to college or anything. He was going to teach me everything I needed to know. I told the counselor that. She thought I lost my mind. I told my mom that. She went ballistic. But I think that after we started at the University of Alabama, I got a relationship with a player, great player there, Derek Thomas. Had another relationship with Cornelius Bennett and Bobby Humphrey. And Derek Thomas commissioned me to do a painting of him. And he paid me $10,000. And I took the check to my mom and she said, "You have a real job, son."
So you had, so full circle, that I'm sure that check, along with other opportunities, helped relieve her apprehensions about you going into the artist.
Oh, yeah.
So are we to understand that you don't have any formal training and that this is all inspired through your anointing and through your religious aspect, interpretation of a gift?
No formal training at all. I mean, the Lord spoke to me that, the glory that would come from what he wanted to do in my life would all be his. And there's no school, there's no, university, there's no instructors, there's no art teachers or anybody that can get the glory for what I did. I mean, everything that I know about art, he taught me. Yeah. And that sounds strange to people until they see the work.
No, actually, it doesn't sound strange to me, because I'm familiar with several people who operate, in the church lingo, in their gift. And, even in the Bible says your gift will make room for you.
That's right.
Right.
That's
So your gift has put you in many places. That's the Bible come true.
Yeah, it says a gift. It says a gift to make room for you, and then you'll stand before great men. And I'm sitting before Chad Jackson, great man.
Oh no, no! I was going to bring up the late Congressman John Lewis. I'd rather let's talk about. But thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. But I saw one of the pictures that you presented, a portrait to the late Congressman John Lewis. And what was that like to stand before a great man? And how did that add a signature to knowing that you were doing what you needed to do?
Well, I tell you, one night, the University of Alabama football team had won a national championship. I was sitting in my studio, my phone was blowing up. People were calling me and asking me, was I going to do a painting feature in that national championship? And man, I was sitting there, I was so happy. And all of a sudden the Lord spoke to me and said, "We're going this way." And this way turned out to be the way of doing civil rights artwork. And the market for civil rights artwork was terrible. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there thinking, what is God talking about? We're going this way. And so I went ahead and obeyed him and started doing civil rights artwork. Ended up with relationships with people like Congressman John Lewis, C.T. Vivian, Joseph Lowry, and Ambassador Andrew Young. And I'm talking about very, very close relationships with them, where I had a chance to go to their homes and sit down and talk to them about the civil rights movement, instead of going and researching through books and everything like that and seeing what other people had to say, getting it directly from them. And I had did a painting celebrating the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday in Selma. Mm-hmm. And you can't do a painting like that without talking to Congressman John Lewis. And so I went and talked to him, and he actually, his reaction to it blew me away. But then my reaction to him, you study about these people and you hear all this stuff about them, and then you go and meet them. And I'm talking about, man, this is the most humble man that I've ever met in my life. I think it just blew me away, his attitude of servitude and everything. But he really, really loved the painting. And there were people, God had dealt with me to get reproductions done of the painting. And I showed it to C.T. Vivian, I showed it to Andrew Young, and I showed it to Joseph Lowry. And there were people that told me that I would never get them to endorse the prints of that painting together because these guys had never done anything like that together since Dr. King had passed away. But God blessed me to show the painting to them, and they all agreed to endorse the limited edition prints of that painting. And man, I mean, we're one of the great things about that was the daughter of President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act, which was a payoff for Bloody Sunday in Selma. She saw the painting and she asked me to place the first reproduction in her father's presidential library. And it's there right now. It was a great experience to go and do that. And then we're getting ready to go to the Bahamas again, where Nassau, Bahamas is the home of Sidney Poitier. And Sidney Poitier was one of the people that we featured in the painting. We wanted to show some people that supported the civil rights movement, some of the celebrities like Harry Belafonte and Sidney himself. And so we're going back to the Bahamas to place one of the prints. The Prime Minister is going to place one of the prints in the airport to honor Sidney Poitier's contribution to the civil rights movement here in America, in which the people of Bimini used the teachings of Dr. King to get their freedom from Great Britain. So it's a great piece of artwork, and it's great, not as far as the artist himself, but what God did through it. And I think that we've got some other things slated that we're going to do too. I'm finishing up a painting that commemorates the life of Ambassador Andrew Young before, with, and after Dr. King. We're getting ready to unveil that in 3 different parts of the world. So very, very excited about that one.
Yeah, thank you so kindly. So here's another question. So, like, I'm kind of blown away, and I'm kind of honored. So I'm trying to keep everything, together. And let me tell you how it came about. So Ken and I, you will find me at the museum a lot. So I'm in Ken's office talking, and I look up. I said, "Man, that's a beautiful painting above your desk, the one he was just referring to." He said, "Yeah, Steve Skipper did that painting," and I was like, "Wow!" It was almost like I couldn't tell if it was an original or if it was a reprint. It was just that well put together. So the other question I want to ask, when people find out, and like Ken said earlier, it doesn't matter if you're black or white, but sometimes we have biases towards African Americans. When they find out that you are African American, does anyone vocalize a shock, or I didn't know you were black? Any kind of qualitative language ever come out that we have to correct or address?
That's a powerful question. Now we can go real deep on that. I've had some experiences, a lot of people, honestly, if they have never seen me, they actually believe, I had to be a white artist or something, because, and kind of, that's understandable to a certain extent, because, there's a lot of, if you study African-American art, there's a lot of artists that don't go as deep as we want to go, because when it comes to the competition in sports art, mm-hmm. it's very, very good. I mean, there's some artists, probably one of the best artists in sports is right here in the state of Alabama, is Daniel Moore. And Daniel Moore has a standard that's so high that he's going to force you to, to go pretty strong to stay in the competition level with him. And at the same time, we accepted the challenge, and he's going to make you run for it. But when it comes to some of the stuff that we've experienced, man, I mean, I remember going into a place, Alabama was playing Tennessee. They beat Tennessee on a field goal that Philip Dole kicked in the last seconds of the game. Mm-hmm. And I was determined, I'm going to get my painting out and my limited edition out before Daniel Moore gets his out. And so I did. I got it out, and I took it to one of the frame shops in Tuscaloosa. And they had some partitions in the store, and the lady, that owned the store, she wanted to buy the prints from me. And so she went to get her checkbook, and I just wandered around the store and went behind one of these partitions where nobody knew I was back there but her. Mm-hmm. And so this guy came in and he asked for a print from Daniel Moore. And the lady said, we don't have his right now, but we do have Steve Skipper. And I was standing back there. It's a life-changing experience. And I heard him say, I don't want to buy that nigga's artwork. I'll wait on Daniel Moore's. And so the lady turned, you know, kind of a few shades of red and everything. She knew I was standing back there. And so he walked out and she apologized and everything. And she gave me the check. I got back in the car and I started driving towards Birmingham. And I made up my mind I was going to get out of this business because, you know, I didn't want that kind of treatment or anything. And I made up my mind I was going back to the steel plant where I came out of to become an artist. I was driving up the freeway and I was talking to God about how I was going to quit. And by the time I got out of Tuscaloosa, by the time I got to Bessemer, God had talked to me and turned my whole attitude around and told me and got me convinced that I wasn't in this business for that man.
Right.
I was in this business to do this for him. And at the same time, there were a whole lot of people, his same color, that loved my artwork and would do anything they could to help me make it. And so stayed in the business, been there 35 years.
And what inspiration or what words of encouragement would you give some of the younger artists who may be African American or just artists at large to say, hey, you know, I want to go in it, but I have some apprehension from my family members, because I'm sure your mother wasn't the only person who would kind of sway someone away from choosing as a permanent lifestyle. But what encouragement or what advice would you give someone who is up and coming and wants to follow your path?
Super good question, because I just got I just got voted on the board of directors of a great school called Restoration Academy. Mm-hmm. And what you just said, I got my hands full to convince the whole school to do that very thing. And I'm telling you, I think that the greatest words to that is persistence. The greatest part of that is not giving up when you feel like giving up and you got every reason to give up. Still don't give up, because right around the corner from give up is success. And I'm telling you, you're going to have to be relentless, and it doesn't have anything to do with racism. Racism is just a part of it, but at the same time, you're going to have to be persistent. If you're going to use something and produce a product that people don't really need, and you're going to use that product to sell that product to not only pay your mortgage or whatever, but put your kids through school and everything like that. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to be extremely dedicated and extremely persistent, and dedicated in a way that's not ordinary, because there's only a few people in the world that God gives this talent to. And so when it comes to you using it, you're going to have to be extremely dedicated to do it. You got a lot of competition in the world, but at the same time, if you dedicate yourself to it, and at the same time, if you give God a chance in your heart and your mind, the possibilities are endless.
Well, we're going to move into two other areas to kind of let you know where we are in the conversation. We're going to discuss the movie that is coming out about your life.
Yes.
We're going to discuss a few other media opportunities that have come up for you. But I'm going to show you a picture, okay? I'm going to show you a picture. And I want you to describe, and this is actually is nothing you hadn't seen. It's the artwork that we chose for this webinar. And if you would, tell us what was your thoughts? What was your feelings when this came? When you saw this, who is the guy sitting in the chair? What is his story? What is he looking at? You know, what is it? Because it seems like the light is on you. You know, good news, they say the light is on you. The bad news, the light is on you. But it looks like in this photo, they captured the light being on you. So if you would, kind of let us, who is this guy that we have used for the media? Just explain to us, if you would.
Well, great photographer, Eric Thompson of Atlanta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. I think that he not only shoots great photography, his photographs tell a story about you and everything, and that's one of the reasons I like him so much. Is this portrait that he shot, he said that it was representative of how God brought me out of the darkness and into the marvelous light, because there was a tremendous amount of darkness in my life. And at the same time, he brought me to a place where God was pleased with me using the talent that I had and bringing him glory from different aspects all over the world, and standing before great men and doing what I was supposed to do before those great men. And I think that that kind of says a lot. I think it shows me of a guy that survived a whole lot of stuff.
So thank you. So if you would, tell everyone, how can we access your art? I know in a moment I'll let Ken explain, the pieces that are in the exhibit currently at the Paul Bryant Museum at the University of Alabama that is a part of the College of Continuing Studies. He can tell us about that in a moment, but how do we access your art? How do we buy your pieces? How do we get your art on our walls at home or in our business?
Well, we have a website that has everything, and the full collection of everything and every aspect of artwork that we do, and it's called steveskipperstudio.com. Everything is on there, every category of artwork that we do, including the sports, the Christian, the civil rights artwork, and everything that we do. And so I invite people to go there. We have places on the website that if you want to become a collector, or if you want to become someone that's interested in things that we're doing, new things that we're doing, and we got a lot of stuff on the horizon that we're going to be doing. So the website is a great place to go.
Okay. And Ken, would you tell us about the pieces that you have in exhibit at the Paul Bryant Museum?
Yeah, you just showed a couple of them in there. That picture with Steve that are here at the museum. We're featuring Steve in our exhibit hall right now. I think there are 4, 5 of his, I think it's 5 of his works in the exhibit hall right now. We have others. So Steve has been a great partner with the museum. I think that's part of what has made it work, that we can work together and help each other. Get to know Steve as a friend, as a person. We just talk on the phone sometimes just to say hello, so there's no business involved sometimes. But we want people to come by and see it. Right now, because of COVID, we're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 9 until 4. So we're open right now, so you can come by this weekend, bring your family and friends out, see some of Steve's work. One of my favorites is John Mark Stallings and Coach Stallings' work that we have in the exhibit hall. So come by and see Steve's work and visit the museum. I'll let Bob got the floor if you would. We're working on the integration exhibit for this fall. That'll be the 50th anniversary of the first African-American player taking the field this September for Alabama. So we're working on the exhibit on that, and we're working with Steve to perhaps get him involved in that project as well.
Okay, well, thank you. And again, to our families, to our faculty and staff, if you are in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or if you find a road that would take you to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, make sure you go to the Paul W. Bryant Museum. It's located on the University of Alabama. Mr. Skipper has some pieces that are in current exhibition there. So we want to make sure that we do that, make that a part of your Black History celebration, and just make it a part of your routine art appreciation, to go by and see some of his works. So let's talk about The Colors of Character. The Colors of Character is the movie that is built around Mr. Skipper's life. And if you would, Mr. Skipper, tell us a little bit how that project came about, and what does it feel like to have a movie premiered about your life?
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to the production team called Fig Tree, Chris Danielson, Warren Calloway, and Don Keith. Don Keith is an author who a mutual friend of ours got us together for lunch. His name was Greg Calhoun. Mm-hmm. He's passed away. He's probably the biggest Alabama fan in history. And I sit down with him and I gave him my testimony. He said, I got a friend of mine that you need to meet. And so he set up a lunch with Don Keith and myself and himself. And Don Keith heard my testimony and thought it would make a great story, a great book. So I was totally shocked. And so we got together and we worked probably 2 years to put the book together. And then Don told me, he said, I got another friend that I think you need to meet. His name is Chris Danielson. So we got together for lunch, and we started going over the fact that the book would probably make a good movie. And so at the time, we were just three guys sitting together, didn't have any money. We had enough money to pay for lunch, but that's about it, but not the movie. And then they brought another guy in by the name of Warren Calloway, who's a great photographer. And we all talked over and over again about how one day God was going to put us together and give us everything we needed to put the movie together. And then the next thing you know, we met a lady by the name of Edie Hand, who introduced us to a guy by the name of Mark Sims. And Mark Sims agreed to put the initial investment in for the movie to get started. And so after that, we got the movie put together. A lot of people came in to be a part of what was going on. Ozzie Newsome, Bob Baumhauer, Ambassador Andrew Young, a lot of people that I'd done business with in the past. And then the movie got to the point to where we wanted to show it to some people that can distribute it. And so we went to the got some talk from HBO and got some talk from Netflix and people like that, but we were afraid that the message of the movie would be lost.
Steve Skipper.
And but
I didn't know.
then they got a team called Collide, which is in Nashville, which was a great group of people that they came down and they spoke to us, and they decided to take the marketing and the distribution and everything for the movie, and then everything exploded from there. And I think that one of the best things about the whole thing about the movie was the fact that my little boy Ephraim, he played me as a fourth grader. And the story I was telling you about a few minutes ago, when my fourth grade teacher saw me and saw what I was doing, and he played that part. They reenacted everything about that. And I think I was very proud of that. But I think that when the movie came out, my daughter, who lives in Texas, we were sitting in the movie getting ready to watch it, and she texted me and said she was getting ready to go see it in Texas. And man, I was kind of nervous because a lot of stuff about my life that she didn't know. And so after the movie, I expected her to text me back and tell me how she liked it. And she said, I got to call you about this. And so I was pretty nervous at that point. And so she called me and told me that the movie had a profound effect on her life, and it encouraged her to, rededicate her life to the Lord and everything. And so, I mean, that's the biggest payoff that I ever seen. But now the movie is going into being offered on Apple TV and Fandango, and the DVD is being prepared, and we're going to show the movie in the Bahamas. And so, I mean, I don't know what to say. I really honestly, Ted, I haven't gotten used to it yet.
Right.
I'm just amazed that God would take somebody that, where I came from, being involved in gang activity and all that kind of stuff, and then here you sit up here and you're still alive, and you see a movie about yourself, step by step of how He brought you, and it's just overwhelming to me. I haven't gotten used to it at all. I'm just seriously overwhelmed.
Yeah, and as they say, don't get used to it, because the greater and greater is coming. Because we're actually two things. BFSA had permission to premiere the movie, so we'll watch it once the interview is done. For all those who want to see the movie, we actually have the link for the movie. I'm going to show the trailer in a few moments, but before we get heavy into that, I wanted to see if anyone else on the call had a question for Mr. Skipper before we go into the preview and before we go into watch the movie.
I definitely did. Thank you so much for that, Mr. Skipper. That was wonderful. I couldn't help but think about the parallels of your life with Paul Jones. BFSA was very privileged to have him come and speak to the group, and I really got to know him personally because of his fervent belief in really increasing the profile of African-American artists. That was his whole life's mission, to really collect African-American art. And of course, he has one of the largest collections. And then to be from Alabama and have it housed here at the University of Alabama, a place where he couldn't go to school. So many parallels with just the struggles of that. He was also self-taught, learned it on his own. So just tremendous parallels. And I just appreciate you coming out and you really using your gifts in this way. The other point I wanted to bring up was Stillman College. I don't know if you've met Cynthia Warwick, the president, Dr. Warwick, has
Not yet.
really pushed the profile, wants to push the profile of Black artists, and she has an annual art walk. I think it's during I think it's during the Martin Luther King weekend, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's when she usually has it. She's the one who told me about the sports museum, sports art museum. I knew nothing about it, having lived here in Alabama, down in the Mobile area, because she commissioned some works from their museum for her artwork. So I definitely want to connect you with her,
Yeah.
so you can connect. Yeah, she and the importance of art and collecting art and really understanding art and supporting Black artists, I think, is an ongoing conversation. I'm so glad BFSA, sponsored this because I just read the story of Paul Jones and I was just flabbergasted by his story. And we invited him to come and having meeting the person and meeting a person in person really brings that story to life. I got a chance to really kind of connect with him later, even birthday parties and things like that before he died. I mean, the significance of the Paul Jones collection on the campus at the University of Alabama is just significant. So I just wanted to say that about you. And
he was one of my heroes.
Yes. He really supported artists who were at HBCUs, art departments, those types of artists who rarely got the same, you mentioned Jacob Lawrence. He's well known. Jacob Lawrence is well known. I mean, I've seen him at his work at the High Museum in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
But other, so many art department artists at my alma mater, Xavier University. So we know the art of the chair of art there, but others, around the country may not know. So just appreciate what you do.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much for that. Is there a question on the floor? Anyone want to ask Mr. Skipper an actual question? No? Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play the trailer to the actual movie, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we'll actually come back and watch the movie. Before we do that, did you have anything that you wanted to say to BFSA or to anyone that is watching or will get to look at this a little bit later? Did you have a message for them, or did you want to have any comments?
Well, I think the movie is extremely well done by the people who did it. I think that's one of the things that still got me overwhelmed. The people that are involved in this, the title of the movie, Dr. King said that you shouldn't judge a man by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. And I think that that's one of the keys that they used in titling the movie was the fact that in my life, my success in the business was not just because of the support of African Americans. There were a tremendous amount of people of all colors that came together to make sure that I was going to have everything I needed to succeed. There was a tremendous amount of people that came together of all colors, white, every color, to even stand up against racism on my behalf. And I think that it's not only the colors that I used to paint, but it was the colors that God used to put my life together, the colors of all the different individuals that stood up, for what he wanted to do in my life. And I think that those colors and the character of all of those people that made this possible, I think that's one of the greatest messages that's in the movie.
Thank you. Ken, did you have any final words before we look at the movie and the?
Thanks for having me on. I always enjoy being with Steve. He's a great friend to have, and somebody can give Chad. He's run for his money. He's the best dressed. We always have. I love y'all. I love what y'all done, and one of the things you probably have Steve back for for other sessions, but the business side of what he's had to do. It's one thing to have the talent, but it's a total different world to learn to be the businessman that he's become. I think that's an important story that needs to be added to the conversation too.
Well, thank you, Cam, for the suggestion. We'll line them up somewhere else once we cover that topic. But I will say this now, in looking at some of the pictures, Mr. Skipper, you do have a few outfits that I would wear. And most people know me. I like to dress. My forte is like when I'm in suits and dressing up. I think that goes a long way. That speaks to your artistry, since Cam brought it up. But I mean, yeah, you do that very well. So you would give me a run for my money around here. So I'm glad that you're in Bessemer, Birmingham, and I don't have to compete. I did work in corporate America in Bessemer, Alabama, and I know you go to where Pastor Walker was, right?
New Bethlehem Baptist.
Yeah, I should know that. Yeah, so the church that I played for was right around the corner from that church.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Eric Hale is a good friend of mine who's a minister.
Oh, great musician.
Yeah, powerful guy. So it's just so awesome to know that greatness can be local as well.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the people that we admire is not always, on the far West Coast or in New York. We
That's
actually
right.
have greatness right here in our neighborhood, in our
That's
local
right.
municipality. So thank you for bringing that forward. And I'm sure that a lot of parents want their sons to view this, and a lot of juvenile opportunities. They need to see that just because you have a moment of struggle in your life will not always be like that. So my grandfather would always say, make the next best decision.
Yes, yes,
So at
yes.
some point, you had to make a better decision to get you where you are. And we already know you give all glory, honor to God. Isaiah said he's the God of glory. So we know that, and we appreciate that component. And I think we would be remiss not to know that that is a part of you. So yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, you very much thread it that way. So we're gonna take a moment. We're gonna look at the premiere trailer and see if we have any questions. If not, we're going to go to the movie. So don't go away. Hang tight for 1 second.
Attention. Steve Skipper. Steve Skipper. Steve Skipper. Steve Skipper. Steve Skipper, man. I didn't know who he was, but he got my attention. Around the time of my childhood, the civil rights movement was going on. Teacher would ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? You never said artist. She would tell you, think of something else. No black man can make a living as an artist. In 1968, I was a part of the kids transferring to white schools, which was problematic. The last thing God cares about is you, and that makes you real angry. And it made me a prime candidate for the critics. I took a job at a cast iron pipe company. When that pipe hit my thumb, I heard the devil tell me, I've got you this time. You'll never paint again. You have the nerve to come in here, the race you are, without a college education, and think that you can actually compete with guys who are here in the right color. He's gifted from God. I've never seen anybody paint like that, untrained, ever. All the peoples of the world will have to discover a way to live together in peace. He gets the spirituality of the movement. It's about content of character. I believe that what self-centered men have torn down, men other-centered can build up. I still believe
Okay. Like, did y'all get to hear that pretty good?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. There was some sluggishness on this side, on the side of the building, so I apologize if it was. Very, very inspirational. Even the trailer, you get the Dr. King voiceovers, and again, we see how this has come together in this particular movie. Now, do you see or feel like there will be any other works in the future, or are there other things that we should look for? What's next for Steve Skipper?
Well, I think the project that we're working on with Ambassador Young is going to be pretty big. We also have commissions from Coach Bobby Bowden to do a commemorative painting, limited edition on him. Also have some special stuff coming from Sylvester Croom
Okay.
and Dwight Stevenson from the University of Alabama. We have them coming up, and we're going to do Najee Harris. Can look for that one pretty soon also.
Okay. Because also, I noticed was in the loop that we did earlier, you were endorsed by Nick Saban, Coach Nick Saban. Is that correct?
Oh man, one of the coolest guys I've ever met. I think that I was warned before I was going to meet him about how tough he was and how, probably mean he could get or something like that. And I walked in and I had myself braced for all this, toughness and all this kind of stuff. I ended up meeting, one of the kindest and one of the best people I've ever met in my life. And he directed me to, I told him I was interested in doing some contractual work with him. And I think it kind of threw him off a little bit. And he really respected that I didn't come for an autograph or anything like that.
Right.
We wanted to talk to him about some business, and he directed me to his people in Memphis, Jimmy Sexton, people up there. So I went up there with Joe Namath's agent, Mike Bike, and we went up there and long story short, we found out that Coach Saban wanted to do business with us, put together a contract. We signed the contract. He gave me something that was very, very precious. He gave me an endorsement. And I don't take that lightly at all because he doesn't sling his name around a lot like that, and he doesn't give endorsements to a lot of people and stuff like that. So there were a lot of people that were kind of thrown by the fact that he picked me to do the commemorative of the first national championship there. And I realized that I had a responsibility to make him proud, and he ended up pretty proud after the project. And I was very, very indebted to him ever since.
Is that painting at the Paul Bryant Museum as well?
Yes, it was purchased by a collector and donated to the Bryant Museum. Very, very proud to that. Last time I came down there, the painting is hanging in the museum with several other ones that we've done. And so, but as far as it, his reputation, the people that think that Coach Saban is all tough and all that kind of stuff, and he's tough when he has to be, but he's one of the coolest people that you're ever going to meet. And then at the same time, if he takes a stand for you, he really does it. And I'm forever indebted to him for not doing that, only that, but some other stuff that he's done for me.
Well, we do want to tell you on behalf of the Black Faculty and Staff Association, the executive board, and all of our members at large, we do thank you for taking the time to speak with us. We thank you for trading through those years and sticking with it. We thank you for joining our platform. And if there's anything that we can do to support you and lift your cause and bring you forward, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to continue our relationship and see, where it takes everybody. And we're very proud to have you within our midst. So I'm gonna give you, as president, I'm gonna give you a charter membership, okay?
Oh my God.
It won't cover any voting rights, but you'll have a charter membership.
I really appreciate. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you, Chad. I mean, and everybody that's on the board. I mean, this means more to me than you know, and I'm going to prove that with some surprises for you. I got some surprises for you, but at the same time, I can't tell you enough how much this means to me to be a part of what you're doing and to have you do this for me. I mean, I guarantee you, my grandchildren will know about you.
Oh, well, thank you. But like I said, God ordains all things. And like when Dr. Simon and I spoke to you first, we were very clear in our communication that the honor is ours. So, and it remains so. The honor is ours to be able to use our platform to bring you forward. So we maintain that honor, and we thank you so much.
Well, brace yourself now. I'll be coming to Tuscaloosa, bring you something special.
Okay, don't say that too many times. We may have an audit. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but thank you so much. What we'll do is we'll go ahead. We're right on time. It's 1:59. We'll go ahead and watch the movie. For those who want to, I do have to make a few announcements. You can only watch the movie during this webinar. When we post this webinar live for copyright agreement, we have to edit out the movie because we only ask for permissions to show it one time. So that's how that's going to work. So for those who come back and look at the link later, you will be able to watch the interview, but the movie will be edited out of the section. Ken, thank you so much. I guess I'll see you a little bit later today, as always.
Chad, the length of the movie is?
Oh, the length of the movie is 1 hour and 7 minutes. Yeah, it's 1 hour and 7 minutes. So we'll go ahead and cue that up. And again, thank you so much, Mr. Skipper, for taking your time. And hopefully when we're able to meet in person again.
That's a definite.
That's a definite. Or, you know, because the church I play for is investment. So when I come up there, I'll give you a call and see what you're doing. You know?
Wherever you want. I mean, I'm definitely coming to see you in Tuscaloosa.
Yes, sir. What's the Bright Star? I like the Bright Star. We can go there.
Yep, we can eat at the Bright Star up here and Dreamland down there. Baumhauer's down there.
We'll figure that out offline. Everybody's like, they went unprofessional. All right, so we're gonna get this queued up. Give me about, I think it should take about 10 seconds and we'll get the movie started, okay? Thank everyone so much for logging in. Thank you, our Facebook family. You can stay on and watch again. Once this movie is complete and is showing, we will have to stop it and take it offline, okay? Just give me a few moments and the movie will start momentarily.
Chad, can you unmute?
Scripture says, in all your ways acknowledge him and he'll direct your path. Well, path is not a freeway, a road, or a boulevard. Paths could be cutting through anything where nobody's never been before. My career is the same thing. Starting out in the art business was very tough. The term starving artist is very real. I did a lot of sports art, a lot of it for University of Alabama. As an African-American artist for doing artwork that was sanctioned by the university, nobody had ever done it before. During the time of my childhood, when the civil rights movement was going on, the teacher would ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? You never said artist. She will tell you, you got to think of something else. The thing that's big to me is non-visual. The Spirit of God that comes in to the studio and enables me to do everything that I do. That's the most important part of it. 30 years doing sports artwork in almost every sports hall of fame in the country. Everybody's calling me, are you going to do this painting? We want a print of it. All of a sudden, God speaks to me and says, we're not going to go that way. And I say, sir, I've learned you better just go on and do what he said.
A mutual friend called me up one day and said, you've got to meet this guy. He's got a great story. I get that all the time. In this case, it was true. Over barbecue lunch, I heard about Steve. I heard about his transformation. I knew then I had to be involved in helping tell that story. And I thank the Lord every day I got that opportunity.
He's gifted from God. He is an untrained artist who looks like he went to the Paris Salon or the Grand Central Academy. I've never quite seen anybody paint like that, untrained, ever.
Steve Skipper is an incredible artist. I mean, breathtaking art, God-given talent, amazing ability.
There's a lot of sports art out in the marketplace, and I do think sports art is very important because sporting events and memories from sporting events are very visual in nature. Those iconic moments in time that are captured create those lasting memories for people. This is still one of my favorite, if not my most favorite pieces of sports art. The entire concept just exploded off the canvas. I didn't know who he was when he sent this, but he got my attention when he sent this.
Steve Skipper, man, I didn't know much about Steve, not at all. I mean, getting to really know him, he did a portrait of me on the sideline, and he sure know how to capture the moment and the individual. His work is unmatched.
The thing about Steve is when you can match talent with passion and professionalism, then you're going to come up with a good product, and he comes up with a good product every time.
I met Steve over 25 years ago, and I've had a number of pieces of art of Steve's, and I'm a fan of his. Oh, what is this, Nick Saban winning the national championship?
He had a very tough life when he was younger, and he pulled himself out of it and begins to paint such extraordinary works. I don't know how he did it. You can't explain that. Explain that. Explain that. I don't know how he did it.
Explain that.
Born in a place called Rosedale, which is a part of Homewood. Very, very special place where they say it takes a village to raise a child. I think they kind of invented that in Rosedale.
Steve grew up in a small community near Birmingham, Alabama, located right in the middle of a very affluent area in the city.
Very, very protected. Parents and everybody hovering over you because of the civil rights movement going on at the time. I didn't understand too much about it. I think that with everything that was going on, they did an incredible job of taking care of us mentally and emotionally and not allowing us to get involved in what was going on, which was danger all around. I remember vividly one day, I was probably about 5, came on the little black and white TV that Dr. King had been killed.
I have some very sad news for all of you, and that is that Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight.
I remember the screaming, not only in the house, in the whole neighborhood. Everything changed.
Negroes of the United States have demonstrated that nonviolence is not sterile passivity, but a powerful moral force, which makes for social transformation. Sooner or later, all the peoples of the world will have to discover a way to live together in peace, and thereby transform this pending cosmic elegy into a creative psalm of brotherhood.
Birmingham has such a special place for the country when it comes to civil rights, agitation, insistence of people. It's the site of some of the most horrific events that showed us who we were.
The civil rights movement was not just about marching here and marching there. It was about getting opportunities, better opportunities than we had. At Rosedale, I would have a book that would be about this size, but you go to Edgewood Elementary and that same book was like this, and it had a whole lot more information in it.
Steve was in the 4th grade at Rosedale School, which was still a totally segregated all-black elementary school. A teacher named Vernell Saunders happened to walk past his desk one day and noticed Steve drawing.
She was extremely passionate. She recognized the fact that I had something special.
She took him down a hallway to a tiny little closet. In that closet were art supplies. She set Steve down and said, "I'll come back and get you later."
She went to the principal of the school and told him and wanted to get some funds allocated for some art supplies, but there were no funds in the school, so she started paying her own money. Looking back on it right now, I know she's trying to get me to concentrate, focus, and she brought these oil paints and these beautiful brushes, and she actually brought canvas and stuff like that. I didn't know anything but, a piece of paper or something like that on a notebook. It would make the story beautiful if I told you I sat in there and did some beautiful artwork, but the truth of the matter is I sat in there, I was so intimidated. Squeezing paint out of a tube was a new experience. All these different paintbrushes. Why did you have to have 10 different paintbrushes? And then at the same time, all these different chemicals and stuff that you mix with oil paints and stuff like that.
All he knew was they smell good. He still enjoys the smell of that oil paint.
It wasn't a good experience for a long time, but I think that she kept believing that something was going to happen. She would come to my home and talk to my parents and say, one day your son is going to be real special in art.
Well, he didn't put anything on the canvas that day, but Ms. Saunders came back and promised he could come back anytime he wanted to, and that's where he really started putting oil paint on the canvas.
I had a big brother, Don. Everything he wanted to do, I wanted to do. And that got me in trouble sometimes, you know, just to do some things that weren't right. But one thing that he did, he used to like to draw. He could do the head of a man in about 5 minutes. I thought that was so cool. And I had an uncle that was very good. And he could look at you doing whatever you're doing, take a pencil on a piece of paper and ask a beautiful sketch. And I would be so excited, you know, because he was beyond my brother. He could really get detail in everything. It was funny, though, that after he would get through, he would be so sad. He couldn't be an artist. Couldn't be allowed to be one. He was just totally emotionally destroyed, which caused him to become an alcoholic.
Steve's uncle left Birmingham to go back to California, where he had previously worked as a sketch artist just outside the gates of Disneyland. He was convinced a black man could never make a living in the segregated South.
As a little kid, you know, you see things, but you don't really understand. And later on, you do. Because when I told my mom I want to be an artist, she started thinking about his experience. I'm going to have to go through the same stuff he went through, and she didn't want that for me.
Steve's mother told him no black man could make a living as an artist.
For a long time, I thought she was rejecting my hard work. I didn't really understand where she was coming from. Everything that she was trying to protect me from, and my passion, my dedication to go ahead and be an artist, I experienced every bit of that anyway. And she would always tell me, just get a real job, you know, just make a living. It's not that important to make a difference. Just make a living, get an education, get a real job, don't do anything that'll upset anybody. At 9 years old, I witnessed some stuff that I never should have saw as a kid. You know, I thought the sun rose and set on my parents. At 9 years old, my mom had an affair, and I walked in on her with this other guy. And it really just messed me up in a whole lot of ways. It filled me with a whole lot of anger. And when I say anger, I mean way past what a 9-year-old kid should ever go through. I didn't have any kind of outlet of getting it out. Couldn't tell anybody, too embarrassed. So I just held it on the inside. I saw the relationship between her and my dad kind of deteriorating. And even though it deteriorated, they stayed together physically. He would have his life and she would have hers. A few years after that, we were bused. In 1968, I was a part of the school system and kids transferring from African-American neighborhoods into white schools, which was traumatic for me because the only white people that I saw was the insurance man, and we didn't have a relationship. So we're going to schools, you know, and the turmoil of us going into that different world and then the turmoil of them receiving us into that world, it was really traumatic on both sides. And so once we get there, there's a whole lot of different racial clashing between students, you know, and fights every day. My situation stood out a little bit more than everybody else because I was extremely angry. I think I got in more fights than anybody else. By the time I was 13, this anger was just like a fever pitch. From 9 to 13, all that anger was inside of me. One Sunday afternoon, I had a cousin that introduced me to marijuana. And on the back porch of my parents' home, I smoked my first joint. It seemed like every ounce of anger and every part of the problems that I was facing, that was the answer to it. Because I didn't feel any of the pain, I didn't feel anything. I think it was a few months after that, I was introduced to the Crips.
Steve really didn't feel like he had a strong family life at this time. He turned to some other source for family.
2 additional Crips gang members were arrested in South Central Los Angeles this morning.
The drugs seized at the border yesterday are believed to belong to the Crips, a street gang rising in national notoriety.
The Crips are one of the largest and most violent street gangs in the world. They're primarily made up of young African Americans and Hispanics, and they originated in Southern California, first as black clubs and then as something a lot more sinister. Membership thrived among those that were most affected by joblessness, poverty, racial segregation. After infighting and some vicious battles with other gangs, the Crips came under the influence of the major drug cartels, and they spread their influence even more to other cities across the U.S., including Birmingham.
And so that night that I went in, real late at night, very, very dark, you're in a field, there's all these guys are there, and then there's a leader that walks up to you and asks that you really want to be a part of what we're into. I just stand there and look him in the eye and say, yeah. He speaks to this other guy and said, okay, we're gonna jump him in tonight. And so there's 10 other guys that walk up all of a sudden. They're all bigger than me, probably anywhere from 17 to 20, maybe some of them 30 years old. There are people in the Crips who were in the military that train these guys how to fight hand-to-hand combat. Navy SEALs that can train you how to kill with your bare. So the 10 other guys walk up in front of me. The leader, all of a sudden, he says, go. And all 10 of them started beating on me. This draws out this anger that's on the inside of me. And I look at every last one of them. Every last one of them looks like my mom. And so after a few minutes of fighting, I remember having blood all over me. I remember all those guys being on the ground. I remember blood in my mouth and everything. And I remember pieces of skin and everything all over my face. And I remember looking at the leader and asking him, was he next? And he said the infamous words, you're in. So from that point on, life just changed totally different. You're not a normal kid anymore. It's a serious organization that you're in that is run by drug kingpins from California. You're not just hanging out on the corner with your pants hanging low or something like that. This is a totally different situation that you've been recruited into.
He found exactly what he was looking for. He found brothers, he found family, he found a structure. It just happened that certain way was about as bad as it can get.
I used to walk up the street from my parents' house, turn the corner where my mom couldn't see. There's a limousine that picked me up and took me to school. I'd get in the limousine, change clothes from clothes that were sent from California for me to wear to school. There's a backpack was full of drugs. I put the backpack on my back and go to school. Sell drugs all day. School, teachers, students, whoever. Come back, backpack full of money. Turn it back over to them. Cycle. But I'm thinking, limousine, new clothes, new shoes and everything. This is heaven.
Steve also became their chief drug debt enforcer. He's the guy who went out and collected drug money.
I've gotten good at it. I've actually gotten good at being a crip. I'm so good at it. I've never went out to collect the drug dealer's money and came back without it. You know what it takes to get this money, even at 16 and 13. We're dealing with grown people that owe money. Who cares? And when it comes to getting the money back for the drug dealer, I have been the best there is. High school was a totally different situation from here on. High school wasn't high school anymore. High school was business. Because what I focused on was not lesson. I didn't care anything about lesson. Because I always thought you getting your lesson, you graduate, you want a good job. I had a good job. I was making more money than teachers. So high school was business. It was about selling as many drugs as I could to as many people as I could. And I had teachers and I had people that worked in the school and I had a lot of students. And by me being in the Homewood High School system, money was not a problem. This is not like working in a ghetto. This is a school where money is flowing everywhere. And if these kids want it, they're going to get mommy and daddy to give them the money to get it. And so we're in heaven. So I thought. When I started playing football, because that's when I started getting hot. Well, I took pride in the fact that there was a group of guys that we played football together. We won a state championship my sophomore year. The proudest thing that we ever said among each other was we never played a game sober. We played one game, we didn't get high, we almost got beat. We won that game by 3 points. We were high as a kite and we beat everybody just silly because you couldn't feel any pain. Throwing our bodies everywhere. I don't know how we concentrated or remember what a play was or something like that, but we did.
Steve was about at the lowest point you could imagine any human being getting to.
Nothing in the world satisfies. It always pacifies, but it never satisfies. Looking back at it, I can't believe, that God brought me through something like that. Because I remember how many times over and over again you come this close to being dead. But at 16 years old, I had begun to become tired, which was a blessing.
We were doing campus ministry in Jacksonville State University, and one of the members there was a member of Steve's church in Birmingham. And that's the brother that is called Big Mike, that knows Steve. At that time, I knew nothing about Steve, but I knew Mike very well. And he said, let's have a meeting over at my church.
I'm sitting in a park one day. We had just got through robbing this place. But everybody in the neighborhood knows this guy by the name of Big Mike, real big guy. He wasn't friends or anything like that, but I knew him. Mike had become what he could call it saved, and he would witness to everybody and tell them about that he had come in contact with Jesus Christ. And he yells out, Steve Skipper, you need to put that stuff down and give your life to Jesus Christ. But we're not just in the park as little kids. We're some of the most dangerous people in the world. We're sitting right here. And if anybody approaches that space or anything like that, or with the wrong look, it could be dangerous. And so all these guys are packing. I know that his life is in jeopardy. And he starts talking about Jesus Christ at the top of his lungs. And I'm supposed to be the leader that's sitting there, I'm supposed to be, if all these other German shepherds, I'm the Rottweiler. But at the same time, what they don't know is everything that he's saying about Jesus Christ on the inside, that little boy that's on the inside of me, I'm listening to everything he's saying because it's for me. And I'm tired. And I said, leave him alone. Just let him talk. He's not hurting anybody. Just let him talk. And that's totally against our creed, to let him talk. I tell Mike, I said, come here, let me talk to you. And so they think that I'm fixing to tell them, look, I'll kill you if you don't shut up. I go over and I talk to Mike, and they can't really hear what I'm saying. And I said, look, you don't need to talk to me like this. Maybe we can go somewhere sometime. I can meet you somewhere and keep talking, but not right now. And he is so bold. That's one thing that Jesus gives you, is a boldness. When you first get saved, bro, you got a boldness on the inside of you. You can care less what the devil has to say. And so Mike says, look, I've been praying for you, and God wants you to be saved. He's going to save you. I didn't know nobody was praying for me. He's got a great plan for your life. And it's better than what you're doing right now. I couldn't see this far. And he was talking about what God wanted to do with me. And so it was sounding good to me, but I knew this guy was over there looking, and I knew at the same time, man, you got to go somewhere else because this is going to end bad. And it's going to end bad quick in a few minutes. They're not scared of the police. They pay the police. They're not afraid. There's nothing, And so he keeps talking to us. I say, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. I'll go to church with you one night. If you agree, don't talk to me about Jesus no more. He said, deal. He said it too quick. It almost scared me. I mean, I thought he was going to think about it at least. He said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get a preacher to come to that church right over there. And he's going to preach a sermon just for you. That night, before I went in there, I made a deal with a guy because I thought that this was, I go in here, I've been to church before, they start singing, they start getting excited and everything. In about 15 minutes, they get so excited they want to notice I'm going out of the door, and I would meet this guy outside that I would start taking speed that night. I walked into the church and sat down in the back. The choir was singing, and when Brother Mincy got up and he started preaching, I had never heard anybody preach like this. The only thing I'm used to is pastors. Pastors preach on Sunday. But there's another thing that God had that I didn't know anything about called an evangelist. He preach everywhere, anytime. So this guy comes in, and when he first started preaching, he starts talking about stuff that only I knew. And then I wondered, did I tell Mike about this? Because Mike had told this guy about this, and I started getting angry because this was too personal. And then he started talking about stuff I know I didn't tell Mike about. And it was like, there's a lot of people in the church, but he was talking directly to me.
There was a young man standing to this side that caught my eye. And what made me remember him after the altar call the next Sunday. And I pulled up a little late, and what he was doing, he was fussing about something. They said he wanted to know why church had not started yet. He said church was supposed to have started at 11 o'clock. It is 10 minutes after 11. And this is the same young man that I saw in that corner of the altar call standing there.
I had no idea that God cared about my everyday aspect of my life. That he cared about what I was going through as a teenager. You know, I thought that religion was for old people. The same God that was concerned about Joseph as a young teenager or Samson as a young man was concerned about me. Everything that happened in my childhood, that he was not only concerned about it, and he was not only able to do something about it, but he's willing. And all I had to do was surrender my life to him and shoot. This was a no-brainer. December 23rd, 1976, 9:46 p.m. That was good. I found myself on that altar giving my life to Jesus Christ.
That 7:15 rendezvous never happened because Steve did not leave the church.
I found out later the speed that he had, it wasn't cut right, it would have killed me. So God saved my life, my soul saved mine.
And when a person can know what God has done for them like that, that put a different kind of dedication in that person.
When I gave my life to the Lord, I was so happy. And one of the additional things that Brother Mincy talked about was God had given us all gifts and talents. So my mind ran back to the fact that I knew how to draw, but I had shelved that, because, here in the games, you don't have time to be drawing anything. And then he said it's never too late for you to pick up what God, gave you, what you put down. There's no way that Mike could have told him this. Then I started thinking, I started remembering, there's two different things I got to deal with. Saturday morning, I made up my mind, let me go talk to these guys and let them know I won't be back. There's a creed in the group that the only way to get out is to die out. Boldness came over me that I had never had before in my life. In a gang like this right here, boldness is your best friend. I want to make it clear to everybody in Alabama and California, I won't be back anymore. This is it. I resign. I'm retired. I'm quitting. You can keep the gold watch. I'm gone. Don't never sell short the boldness that comes with being a Christian. So when I walked in, I had a boldness that actually scared them. They never said anything like that. Nobody never stood up to them. You don't stand up to them. And they backed up in a way to where I turned around and I walked out, and I've been walking ever since. Nobody said a word. I've been addicted to some drugs that I've been taking. And I've been selling drugs to people so long. I've seen addiction, and I've seen people go through withdrawal in the war between their body and the fact that they want to be free from that drug. I knew people that didn't make it. Withdrawal is not something that everybody survives. And I said, God, I got to go home and I got to go through that. And so I went home and I sat up in the bed waiting. I was afraid because I know that it's like a train wreck. All of a sudden it would come from anywhere and would take you over. And so I sat there in the bed, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Next thing you know, that was Friday night. Next thing you know, it's Saturday morning. Never happened. 42 years later, never happened. My junior year in high school, I got saved. I was witnessing to everybody in there. I was witnessing to the janitors. I was on everybody's nerves. And instead of reading the books, I had my Bible sitting there. I was reading the Bible. The only thing I wanted to know was the Word of God. My senior year, we were at practice, pouring down rain. We were hitting each other. We had full pads and everything, and the mud all over the place. I looked over towards the high school, and there was a light on in one of the rooms. And I knew exactly which room that was. That was art class. And I saw people walking around in clean clothes with no rain, and no football gear, no cuts on your hands or nothing like that, no pain. And I thought, you know what I know? I know how to do something else. And that's when God started really telling me that He wanted me to be an artist. Nobody in my family at that time had a scholarship or a chance to go to college. My mom and dad's hopes and dreams were hanging on me. I was at one of the best high schools in the state. C average, which I struggled to keep, but I was pretty good at football. I knew how to draw and paint. So the counselors came and they said, we got good news for you. You got 3 scholarship offers. You got 2 scholarships in football. And you got 1 scholarship to Florida State, fine art. And I celebrated for about 5 seconds. Because in second number 6, the Lord spoke in my ear and said, you don't need to take either one of them. And I get this funny look on my face, and the counselor's looking at me like, well, isn't this good news? And the Lord spoke again and said, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about art myself. So in the end, I'll be the only one that you have to give the glory to. So I told the counselor, I'm not going to need the scholarships. God's going to teach me everything I need to know. And she looked at me like I lost my mind. She said, how do you think this is going to go over with your parents? This is going to be World War VIII. I went home and told my parents. They went ballistic. They thought I lost my mind. After the Civil Rights Movement, we did all the marching and everything. We got him the opportunities, and he comes up here saying, Jesus is going to teach me everything I need to know.
But even after he had turned his life around, after he left the Crips, after he had rejected drugs, and after he graduated high school, Steve's path was not necessarily an easy one. Neither was his dream of becoming an artist. He soon had a family to feed. Though he continued to work at his art, Steve followed his mother's advice. He took a job in one of the mills there in Birmingham, American Cast Iron Pipe Company, that made steel pipe. He had probably one of the dirtiest jobs you could imagine.
Married with a son at the time, and pretty happy. It's one of the best jobs there is as far as benefits are concerned. But what people didn't tell me about the other part, the first time that I went to work there, there's fire all over the place. These huge ladles of melted iron that are being transported all over the planet. There's dirt everywhere. There's filth everywhere. There's little metal fragments on everything and all this kind of stuff. Before you go home, you have to take a shower to get in your car.
I think it's pretty much any of our idea of hell. That's where Steve worked.
One night, the job that I'm working is kind of away from all the danger I'm thinking. They tell you, always pay attention to what you're doing and always stay focused on what we told you to do. So you see people get hurt, see people get killed all the time. After I get through working, I used to go home and work on painting I'm working on.
Steve had actually started painting a portrait of Samson, someone who had broken his vow to God and had lost his talents, his strength. And that's very apropos to what's about to happen.
I was in this place where there's a whole lot of pipe that's on this railing, and you roll in the pipe down the railing as they go towards the furnace. And so all of a sudden, I take my mind off of what I'm doing, and I'm looking over here, but the pipe is still rolling, and I don't know it. And so my thumb gets caught between these two. When that pipe hit my thumb, I heard the devil this time. I heard him tell me, I've got you this time. You'll never paint again. I turned around and I looked at my hand, and all of this was crushed, and it was filled with, it seemed like hundreds of pieces of little metal fragments. And then it looked so bad, I can't hardly look at it. And so my boss came over, and I had one of the toughest bosses. He said, what happened? What did you do? And I showed him my hand, and he screamed. You know, it was just that bad. By the time we get to Brookwood Hospital, it's really hurting. It's hurting bad. The specialist comes in and he looks at it. He said, we got to get it cleaned up before I can do anything with it. He puts it in some kind of solution, and all the dirt and the metal fragments start to come off, and it's like stuff like that was in my hand. Wrap it up, I go home, and I start thinking about it. The painting is half finished. You'll never paint again. You'll forget it. My hands wrapped up like this, and I'm sitting in my bed, and all of a sudden God tells me, get up, let's go to the easel. Can't you see what's wrong? Can't you see what's happening? I go to the easel. He said, get the paintbrush. My hand is wrapped with gauze. When you're an artist, you got to feel that paintbrush. You got to be able to feel it and maneuver it around. And I put the paintbrush down in between the gauze on my thumb and my hand. And it slips out of my hand. And I'm trying to figure out, why is God telling me to do this? This doesn't make any sense. And I tell him, I cannot do it. He said, pick up the paintbrush and put it back in there again. He said, put your hand up against the canvas and we're fixing to start painting. He's saying we this time. I put my hand up there just in obedience. I'm crying. Because I'm thinking, why is he doing that? It's over. And all of a sudden I feel something on top of my hand. My hand starts to move. And I'm crying so bad that I can't even see what I'm painting. And the next thing you know, I wipe my face. And every color is going exactly where it's supposed to go. And it's going better than it was when my hand was right.
He actually finished that painting of Samson. His hand recovered completely. He's able to use it, obviously, very, very well.
From that moment on till now, when I get in the studio, I can feel his hand on top of mine. And it's got my hand across the canvas. And it takes me probably a month after I finish the painting, even today, to sign it because I know who did it.
Steve got started in sports art almost by accident. The first paying job that Steve talks about was at one of the primarily white high schools in the Birmingham area. They asked him to come in and draw sketches of the baseball team. Steve would go in and do the sketches and charge $35 a piece for those. That's more money than he would make making cast iron pipe at a Sipco. He thought, you know what, there may be money in this after all. At that time in Birmingham, we had a professional football team called the Birmingham Stallions. Steve happened to be there one day with a local sportscaster, Herb Wedges. One of the players offered Steve money to paint a portrait of him. Steve didn't know how much to charge him for it. He was going to ask for $35 or $40. Herb Wedges said, Steve, you don't charge enough. These guys make a lot of money. Charge them. Steve agreed to charge $250. And that's where he learned the value of what he was doing.
One thing I understood about athletes and coaches, they all have egos. And their egos are like Mount Rushmore. When one of them gets something and the other one finds out he's got it, he wants something not like it, but bigger. So that was cool. That was real good. Because when Cornelius Bennett wanted something, Derek Thomas was going to want something bigger. So it's more money. Derek Thomas had just signed with the Kansas City Chiefs. And he came over to my house and he wants to commission me to do a painting. He pays me $10,000. I remember taking that check. My mom was sick. And I took that check to her and I showed her the check and she sat up in the bed like this was penicillin or something. She sat up in the bed and she said, "You got a real job." I think that was one of the best times of my life because about 2 weeks later, Bobby Humphrey writes me a check for $12,000. This is going to be kind of strange to somebody that's not a Christian, but when you have a relationship with God, He'll tell you to do stuff that doesn't make sense at all.
As Steve was beginning to paint portraits of professional athletes, including members of the Atlanta Falcons, he met Mike Shula. Mike Shula at that time was the quarterback for the University of Alabama. And Mike saw some of the work that Steve had done for the Falcons. He suggested that Steve talk to the University of Alabama's head football coach at the time, Ray Perkins.
Perkins had a bad reputation. He was about as tough as a $2 steak, and he just didn't take any guff. I had just gotten saved. God had just gotten me out of the crypts, and with the attitude that I had in the crypts and the attitude that he has, this is going to be a train wreck. So in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. I remember one night, God telling me, just as clear as I'm talking to you right now, I want you to go to Tuscaloosa and meet with Coach Perkins. Don't have a college degree. Barely got out of high school, and you want me to go to a university to talk to King Kong. I had to be just either truly in love with God or crazy, or a little bit of both, because I went down there.
Turned out to be a good thing that he did. After giving Steve a rough time, Ray told him about the annual senior banquet for the Alabama football team. Coach Perkins wanted painted portraits of each one of those players and have it a part of the trophy.
He said, "I've got a guy that's doing it already, but he's not as good as you. How'd you like that job?" He said, "I'm going to fire that guy in about 5 minutes and I'm going to give you the job." And I'm like, yes. Are you kidding? Yes. He said, "I got 22 singers. I need this portrait done in 2 weeks. Can you do it?" I said, "Yes." And I get in the car and I'm driving back up the road and I start thinking, 22 singers in 2 weeks, are you crazy? There's no way I can do that. God gave me a different technique of doing pastel portraits. I could do 4 in a day. And so ahead of time, I was finished with the portraits. That really got him charged up.
That began a long relationship with the University of Alabama football team, from Ray Perkins through Gene Stallings, through Mike Shula himself, who became the coach later on at Alabama, up until the current coach, Nick Saban.
When going to the University of Alabama, you can confronted by people who don't want you there, people who definitely don't want you there as a fine artist. You have the nerve to come in here, the race you are, without a college education, and think that you can actually compete with guys who are here and who are so-called the right color and who have college education here. The brunt of the racism was terrible. I experienced people who were determined with everything in them to make sure that I didn't make it in the business. And got to the point where I was pretty much ready to quit. In fact, there's a lot of frame shops in different galleries I'm not allowed in right now. One night I was sitting there with my kids and the phone rang. We had this den where we sit in and you could look out the window, you could see people coming to the driveway. And so the phone rang, and there was this eerie voice of somebody on there saying this warning for me not to come back to Tuscaloosa. And so we look out the window and it's dark and then there's cars on the driveway. They're saying on the tape, you see how easy it is for us to get to you. And that's when my girls and my boys, and all of them, knew how to draw, wanted to be artists, but when they heard that message, they wanted to do something else. At the same time, there were some people who were just as determined that they were going to do everything they could to make sure that they were going to help me. And I had people that come to me and said, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I just feel like I need to help you. I feel like I need to be on your side, and I'm going to make sure you get everything that you need.
We met Steve at a charity benefit. They auctioned a painting that he had of the Alabama LSU game. It signified the tornado that happened in Alabama in 2011. We ended up winning it.
So the tornado behind it, right?
Yeah, it has a tornado in the
A.
Yeah.
I heard about Steve through, I think, Ricky Davis, who was a teammate of mine at Alabama. They talked about, doing a portrait, and I'm not a guy that likes to do portraits or anything. And I was kind of lukewarm about doing it, but I found out how passionate he was, but also how talented he was. And he came up with this photograph, and he used it, and it came out very, very well.
We ran into Steve Skipper through a friend of ours, was introduced. Just felt his passion and saw a little bit of his work, strong in his faith, as was Dave. He just felt comfortable with Steve before he left and thought, this is the guy that we'd really like to see do this piece. The day he brings it in the office, open it up and look at it, you're just kind of speechless. The first thing Dave did prior to putting on the helmet and getting ready was bow his head, hold his hands, and say a little prayer.
And I reached out to Steve because he just sent this to me to break through all the clutter of things that you're constantly receiving across your desk. I'm like, wow, man, we need to do some additional work together. So that began our business relationship with him, very aggressive in pursuing his goal in a very understated way.
When he first came and we met, here's a guy that want to be an artist, think he can draw people and paint people. When you see the picture, you see more than the individual in that picture. You kind of see where he comes from, and you can feel what he's accomplished in life.
How detailed and in-depth Steve paints them.
Kenny Stabler, blue eyes, got blue eyes.
I mean, or if there's
pieces
like a tree.
of grass coming up from the field when somebody,
The leaves.
from the cleat marks, it's unbelievable just the detail.
It is beautiful. It's just gorgeous. We're running out of room for wall space. We don't have anywhere else to put them. So you got to slow down.
When I got the opportunity with Coach Saban, that was an experience. There were a lot of people that were very opposed at me having the guts or the gall to even talk to him, to actually have my company partner with him in a contract that was unheard of. When it all came down to it, I went to Memphis, Tennessee to meet with his people, and we have a folder with recommendations from all these different people, including Ozzie Newsome and Leroy Jordan and some other people. I remember my attorney sliding the paperwork over to the representative, Coach Saban, and the guy sliding it back over and saying, "You're not going to need that." And then he told me about this guy that I was competing against, and he said he offered Coach Saban $200,000 up front. I remember my attorney saying, "You mean you brought him all the way up here to tell him that you're going to give this opportunity to another guy?" And he said, "I can say that. I brought y'all all the way up here to tell you that Coach Saban wants to pick Steve. Coach Saban is sending a message back to this other guy that he's going to pick Steve, and the people that he's got working with him, if they want to have anything to do with the University of Alabama, they're going to have to help Steve make it successful." At that point, I'm actually past blown away. Coach Saban understood fully And he put his foot down and said that I'm picking him anyway. I cried for probably a week after that, and realizing what kind of guy he really was. It's about content and character. It has nothing to do with color of skin. It's about content and character. My career is the same thing. There's a lot of people that were far from African American that made sure that they were going to do everything possible for me to make it. And they were willing to take the flack from their own people. And when I did my research for the Civil Rights Movement, I found that the Civil Rights Movement wouldn't have lasted at all. It would have crumbled, except for the inclusion of all the other different races that made it possible and made it successful. Alabama had just won the national championship. Everybody's calling me, asking me, you know, are you going to do this training? We want to print of it and stuff like that. And I'm super happy. All of a sudden, God speaks to me and said, we're not going to go that way. And I said, sir, I'm an artist, you know. Bill collector's artist. We don't have a good relationship at all. He said, we're going to start doing civil rights artwork. I've researched this. The market on civil rights artwork is terrible. A lot of times artists just threw the stuff together and not spending any that much time on it. It just doesn't make any sense.
I was in my studio, and the Lord spoke to me and said, Steve Skipper for posterity. So I called Steve. The Lord said, you're supposed to do some kind of artwork that has something to do with posterity.
God's going to really have to be in this because a lot of people are not buying civil rights artwork, but I know he's telling me to do it. I've learned, I've been saved long enough, you better just go on and do what he said.
A few months later, the Birmingham City Council asked him to do the civil rights artwork for the 50th year anniversary of the civil rights movement.
And so I started doing research, and it was not something that was out there, it was something personal. I didn't realize that the civil rights movement, the heat of it, was during that time of my childhood. Mayor Bell commissioned me to commemorate the civil rights movement in Birmingham. God showed me the vision of how he wanted to paint it up. Some people of all these different races would stand on the porch of the 16th Street Baptist Church. And so in the sky, across where they were looking out of the sky, you saw different scenes from the civil rights movement. Because what I wanted to show was all the people that never were in front of the cameras that made it possible for the movement to be a success. And I wanted to really put emphasis on the fact and thank the people of all these other races that not only participated in the movement, but not only made it successful, but paid the ultimate sacrifice. So I could go in the doors of University of Alabama and NASCAR, PTA, and all that stuff. When I first did the Birmingham commemorative, we got a lot of attention. Met a lot of different people, and I started to hear about Bloody Sunday in Selma. And I was actually embarrassed that after all the years that I had lived, I had never been to Selma, and I had never seen the infamous history. And I knew very little about Bloody Sunday.
Selma sprang overnight from an obscure southern town to the front pages of world newspapers. This church was headquarters in the Negro tribe for the right to vote, and it was here that Martin Luther King came to lend his support to the campaign.
Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama. It was a key point in the struggle for voting rights for African Americans. Dr. Martin Luther King was leading a march from Selma across the Edmund Pettus Bridge to Montgomery, all in support of the Voting Rights Act that was then pending before Congress. Those marchers were attacked brutally by state troopers, and they were ultimately turned back across the bridge.
They were were getting ready to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. And when you drive in this cell, when you come into that downtown area, and you look down the street, the bridge is sitting right there. And it seems like instead of you getting close to it, it starts to come closer to you. And it was inspiring to see it, but then to know the story behind it and what happened on it. It was mind-blowing. I talked to the mayor, Selby, and told him about what I did, and he had saw the Birmingham commemorative, so he invited me to come down and meet with him. He's interested in allowing me to do the commemorative painting of Selby. A lot of people had gotten involved and suggested to me, you need to take this painting and show it to Ambassador Andrew Young in Atlanta.
I think the thing about Steve Skipper is that he gets the spirituality of the movement. He's not painting a realistic scene. The bridge was realistic, but in the clouds is where his work comes, and it emphasizes what I have said and that people refuse to realize. We did not know what we were doing. We had no plans. We just knew that something needed to be done, and it was like the old folks say, if you take one step, God will take two. And so the way Steve paints it in the clouds emphasizes the spirituality of the whole movement, and particularly of Martin Luther King.
Congressman John Lewis, who is a representative out of the state of Georgia, he says the first limited edition print needs to be in the presidential library of President Lyndon Johnson. He's the one that signed the Voting Rights Act, was the payoff for the Bloody Sunday. It just so happens that the daughter of President Johnson is in town. So she requests to see the painting at a private showing for her. She sees the painting, and she comes up to me and whispers in my ear, I want the first print to be in my father's presidential library. I'll set it up. It's there right now.
I tell you what, it's not a lot of work. You don't see a lot of civil rights work. You know, for some reason, that's a forgotten art in America. And for Steve to want to take on that project, I think it's one of the greatest things, because if there's anybody who can capture the civil rights, being from Alabama, living in Birmingham, and seeing some of the things that have happened over the years in Birmingham and Alabama, if there's anybody could do it and do it from their heart and from a spiritual standpoint, I think it's Steve.
I was in Louisiana with a friend, Bob Baumhauer. I did a painting of Eddie Robinson the night that he broke Coach Bryant's record.
4 or 5 hours one way and then 4 or 5 hours the other way. You get to know a lot about people. When I started seeing his civil rights art, I shared some stories with him about Bimini.
He asked me, did you know that Dr. King was in the Bahamas? Yeah, he was on an island, a little island there called Bimini, and Bob was a history buff. Well, he starts going into the fact that in 1964, he had learned that he won the Nobel Peace Prize.
And I started talking to him about Dr. King and his speech, and how part of that speech came from Bimini.
A lot of people don't know that he was there in the Bahamas and don't know the significance of both of our countries coming together. And the thing about Dr. King was he was not only a great leader, he was not only a great speaker, he was a great writer. He wrote all of his speeches.
You
know, we were surprised, to say the least, when Dr. King won the Nobel Prize. He thought he was dreaming. He was just awestruck. Then we decided, how are we going to get this speech done? Normally, Dr. King went to Jamaica, but he said, I know too many people. I won't get the time, and too many people know where I am. A friend of his down in Florida said, we can take you to Bimini. And he had to start working on this speech immediately. The next morning, we got up and got on a little seaplane.
And so Adam Clayton Powell lived in Bimini, Bahamas. Dr. King wanted to go over there to get Adam Clayton Powell to help him get the Civil Rights Bill passed. And he was getting a tremendous amount of pressure from J. Edgar Hoover.
About the second or third day we were there, all of a sudden we saw this squadron of helicopters coming in. And we wondered what's going on. They told us that J. Edgar Hoover went off on Martin Luther King winning the Nobel Prize, and that he was the world's most notorious liar. Well, Martin hadn't said anything to him, and we had not even hardly criticized, because even though we knew we were being followed by the FBI, President John Kennedy told Martin that Hoover was claiming that there were communists taking over our organization, supplying us with money and all, and he had okayed surveillance. And so we had no objection to that.
Dr. King, Andrew Young, Ralph Abernathy, they didn't tell anybody they were going to the Bahamas, but their wives. But they didn't realize that J. Edgar Hoover had their phones tapped. He knew they were going over there.
We found out later that Hoover had been nominated by members of Congress for the Nobel Prize. It upset him for Martin to get it. And he'd been wanting it for many years. I don't know what is so important about these prizes.
And J. Edgar Hoover lobbied in Congress to get all these people to speak for him and, you know, to endorse him and everything. And all of a sudden, this 35-year-old black preacher, you know, gets the Nobel Peace Prize.
I think it let Martin know that this was of global significance, and it really served to motivate him. I was with him there for 3 or 4 days, and he hardly ever talked to me, but he was in the spirit.
Adam Clayton Powell figured, I got to get him away from those FBI agents. The only way I can do that is we got to get him into the mangroves of the Bahamas. And in order to get into the mangroves, you had to have a guide. Because you get in and you can't get out, you die. It's out there. So they had this guy by the name of Ansel Saunders.
Ansel Saunders is a legendary fishing guide on the island of Bimini in the Bahamas. He was the one who took Dr. King into the mangroves to find peace and inspiration. And Ansel is still taking folks there to this day.
Came to write the Nobel Prize acceptance speech. And we chose this one. And when we hear birds overhead, tide trickling by, Stab was running under the mangrove roots. He looked up and he said, I believe now more than ever in the existence of God. He said, over my head, I see freedom in here. There must be a God somewhere. He said, and so how could people see all this life and yet not believe in the existence of God? So much life all around us. Life all around us. He looked up and he said, I feel as though I could almost reach him and touch the face of God. And touch the face of God.
Bob talked to me about the fact that wouldn't it be great if you were able to go to that place? He said, I've been to the place where Dr. King went. It's beautiful. He said, how would you like to go to that place and do a painting of the scene where Dr. King was? And I thought this was just a conversation. And so I said, man, that'd be great. And all of a sudden he picks up his telephone, he starts calling somebody. And he said, yeah, he's sitting right here with me now. You want to talk to him? And he hands me the phone. I said, what is this? He said, these are governmental officials from the Bahamas. I said, I'm crazy. I dropped the phone on the floor. He said, pick up the phone.
Well, I've known the folks, I've known a lot of folks in Bimini and different places for a long time, actually since my playing days.
They asked me if I would like to come over there. I said, yes. And would you like to meet Ansel Saunders? He's still alive. He took Dr. King and we have him to meet you and everything we get. We're going to the Bahamas and they take me to meet Ansel Saunders. We're going and we start getting closer and closer to the mangroves. And we're turning like this right here. And I can see a turn over here and he'll turn this way. And I look to my left and there's a bust, a platform that's coming up out of the mangroves. And on top of that, there's a bust of Dr. King. And this is a place where Dr. King was. Never felt the spirit of God like this in my life.
Steve was just absolutely blown away by the stories over there and Dr. King's presence, which is still there.
I didn't sleep that night because I kept thinking about the experience. And I remember coming back and finishing the painting, taking it to Atlanta, showing it to Ambassador Young. He went crazy. He said, I'm going with you back over there when you unveil it. And he did.
Bimini, beautiful place. I had no idea why Ambassador Young and I were going. All I knew was some historic place about Dr. King. And then out comes, during the ceremony, this gentleman by the name of Steve Skipper, about his work, his art, and him doing something revolutionary for Dr. King, and that's canonizing his moment in Bimini. Lo and behold, I didn't know that his art, he was the artist that put the art in our office. That was a Selma painting. And so I always marveled at that painting. But then now seeing this particular work about King, it gave a different perspective of how to think about artists for me.
And we went over and we unveiled it. Different people from Bimini government, people from the House of Parliament in Nassau were there, dignitaries want us to put reproductions of it in the airport so people could see it. And it's never been unveiled here in America. And so that's what we're planning now.
I really hope that he continues doing what he's doing. If he can really get some traction, I think he can make a huge difference. I'm a believer that art moves a culture and not the other way around. I think he is an important figure at the right time in our history to help clean up a lot of this nonsense and get people talking to each other again. And his work makes you do that.
And what you're to see tonight of one of the most important moments really in 20th century American history is brought to oil and canvas in a way that has rarely been achieved.
When I saw Steve Skipper's paintings, the most powerful thing about them, he includes people of all races, genders, clearly shows that the fight for civil rights, for equality, has always been won by alliances of people whose voices will be raised rather than silenced.
Whether or not it's a family portrait, whether or not it's sports, whether or not it's civil rights, whether or not it's religion, he's looking at it as an opportunity to do something and bring the best out of the individual that he's painting.
He's a wonder. I call him a wonder. Quality of his pictures, the detail of his pictures, how many he can put out.
The great Renaissance painters moved an entire continent. Steve could end up having the gift of being a prophet. If his work can continue like this, the power of it is such that he could bring about an extraordinary amount of healing in this land. And boy, do we need it.
I believe that what self-centered men have torn down, men other-centered can build up. I still believe that one day mankind will bow before the altars of God and be crowned triumphant over war and bloodshed, that we shall overcome. This faith can give us courage to face the uncertainties of the future. It will give our tired feet new strength as we continue our forward stride toward the city of freedom. I still believe
I was once taught by a great golfer that the game of golf is filled with great technique. If you perfect the technique of the swing, the ball will happen to get completely in the way. In 1964, God called Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. away from the stress, pressure, and late hour of the civil rights movement to himself. This was a crucial time. Dr. King, using a perfected spiritual swing, hit the golf ball and ended up in the face of God in the mangroves of Bimini. There in the peace that passes all understanding, he took dictation from God, added strength and passion to finish the movement strong and to fulfill the great calling on his life. This great and amazing grace of God has allowed me to do a painting, a limited edition that celebrates Dr. King's sabbatical to Bimini. I pray that this will inspire you to find your Bimini as you perfect the swing of the Holy Spirit. Bimini was like the golf ball that got in the way after the technique of a perfected spiritual swing was completed. Find your Bimini. I found mine.
Thank you, everybody, for watching this premiere. It was awesome. I'm sure you're left inspired. Again, we ask that you join us on our Facebook, is UA BFSA. Visit our website, bfsa.ua.edu. We're on Twitter, and we're also on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and enjoy the life.